Searching addressee. Please wait. 3D designer Radim Finder Peck. Virgin Interactive producer Paul Whipp. Game and AI developer Radim Rumun Křivánek. 3D designer Ladislav Fenix Brychta. 3D designer David Havran Spáčil. Wait for the message.
Hey guys,
Hey.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi there. Oh, you're welcome. It's quite a blast from the past, but I have very fond memories of Martin and the crew and of Original War.
Can you hear us?
Hello, I can hear.
Yeah. Nice meeting you. How are you doing?
Fine, how are you? I just have a sore throat, so maybe I will not talk too much.
Okay, that's no
Okay,
worries.
no problem.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
hello. Hello, nice to be here. Nice to meet you.
You can translate, Azzy?
Pardon.
It's not necessary. I understand a little bit, but speaking it's not so good.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. It's a honor.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I'm just struggling with Google Meet. I didn't use it recently. I have started this on my phone. It's okay.
We wanted to know how you're doing and what are your projects nowadays.
I'm fine. These days, I'm working for a company that works on, that produces board games and their conversion for mobile games. It's basically a company that was founded by Vlad, one of the designers of Original War, and I'm working there mostly as a graphic designer, video editor, and animator mainly. Basically, it started with Original War because that was my first project that I was working on, and back then there were some guys who knew how to create a 3D models, but no one knew how to animate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I basically started to test it, and I ended up animating.
Yes, the Czech game editions take care about the board games, especially the Vláda ones and some others. And I'm working for a division which creates versions for mobile phones. In this year, it will be available internationally. A new version of Codenames application, which brings some more than just a board game. But I am I'm some kind of leader of Brno Board Game Club for more than 20 years, so I'm keen of games a lot.
Well, I've been out of the games industry now for over 15 years. I left mainly for personal reasons because I was starting a family. I have 2 boys here in Australia, and well, they're pretty much grown up now. But the time one spends, particularly as a producer of games, where I was sort of flitting around the world a lot and spending typically as much as 6 months of the year in other countries and very long hours, it really wasn't conducive to family life. So I made the decision first to move to Australia and work exclusively for one game company, which was Orang Games. They became into financial difficulty over a massively multiplayer game that was trying to compete with Warcraft and failed. So they went under. So 15 years ago, with that happening, I went back to my roots, as it were, went back as a programmer, and just did contract programming online using Freelancer and things like that. And over the years, I've built up and then narrowed down so that I mostly now have just a few US clients that I work for, and I work for them mostly on US hours as a programmer, programming in Python and JavaScript.
Now I work for a bigger company, Dactyla. They make some virtual call centers platform, and I work as a full-time developer, full-stack developer. I switch a little bit from design, from graphic to the programming.
How long has it been since you last played or looked into OW?
Well, I saw it a few months ago at Maker Faire, which is it's some fair about new technologies and also about games in Brno. But before I didn't see it for a few years, and in fact I was I was doing a big part of design, but I was more like a graphic designer. So actually, I almost didn't play it. I liked to make the games, but I didn't have time. Well, actually, we played some games on Dreamcast, like what was it, Soul Calibur and things like this. But and Quake. But I didn't play like a lot of games.
I have a few pictures from Altar at the time. Can I send them to you and have your feedback on them? And maybe if you remember some anecdotes, maybe share some with us? Mm-hmm.
Okay, no problem. This is pictures. It's from first place where was Altar. It was some rented small rented flat.
Both of these images are from the time of development UFO Aftermath, I think, which was directly after the time we released Original War. So the most of the team is the same as the Original War.
There was, I think, 10 people in one room, I think. It was very funny. There is Tomáš Kučerovský. He makes sketches and hand drawings. His nickname was Pašík, but I don't remember a real name.
Radim Pech?
Yes. It yes. Radim Pech, yeah. There is on the 4 pictures. There is on the left. He was. He has a red bear, and it's Radim Pech.
This green one is part of the team, the core Brno team on the garden in our original office. So I think this is Vláďa and me here, and the other one on the top of garage is maybe some later. There are more of us, including our friends from Prague and some other people working on this. But I feel this is the team which we used to cooperate on the Original War and UFO Aftermath. On the other image with this blue sky, I'm the funny guy in the center, and on the left it's Havran, David here, I think. Yeah, yes.
In the black T-shirt, totally left.
The very left here. Okay.
Yeah.
It is David. And
Awesome.
the one in the center, this funny-looking guy.
So many people, right?
Yes. And only nicknames are in my head. Honza Krátký, one with the nickname Prcek, but he was from beginning to Dave. Yes, it's on the 4 pictures. In the middle, in the bottom of picture, in the middle, with the red pants. David Spáčil, Havran. There is with black shirt on the top, in the middle.
Okay.
I think Budul, but
yes.
Where is here? He is in on right side of Havran, on the top, in the middle, with the blue shirt.
Well, actually, we see each other few times a year because we have altar meetings at our friend's garden. Actually, Radim Pech Finder is the guy who is organizing it, and on some birthday parties. So we are in contact.
Yes, we have We have tried a year ago some project with David together, but it was cancelled. But we are in contact a little, so we are in the same city of Brno. So it's nice to met some old friends like David or some other ones. But I think that this original war history is a very part of my memories. I am happy to talk about the original war, my favorite project.
I met Martin and a friend of his who was also a director, a guy with a beard that was very talkative, very friendly art guy. Anyway, I met them at E3. I think it was in Las Vegas. Would have been, I don't know, well, 22, 23 years ago. And they'd been around the houses trying to get funding to finish a game, as they put it, but it was actually in quite early stages, and that was what became Original War.
Basically, I talked to Vláďa, and he said he has a project, the Fish Fillet 2. So we went together to the owner of back then Bohemia Interactive, and he said, okay guys, if you are able to do it in 1 year, I will give you money for, I think it was something like that, or 10 months or something like that. And we said okay, and we were working on Fish Fillets 2. It was amazing. That was basically, I would say, the second favorite project I worked on ever.
Oh.
And after the first one was, of course, Original War.
Well, I think at the beginning it was more like a hobby for all of us. We started in 4 people, Radim, Vláďa Chvátil, Tomáš Kučerovský and me working on Fish Fillets, which was a logical game, and then we were working on Original War. And for example, me at this time, I didn't have any flat in Brno, so because I'm from Olomouc, I was just sleeping in the sleeping bag under table, and when I was rendering, I just wake up at 2:00 at night and check how it rendered, and if I saw some mistake, I just send it there again. And I think there was a machine like 486 processor or something like that, so it took pretty long time to render just few frames. It wasn't paid very greatly, but it was fun.
I met Tomáš Kučerovský in school actually, because he was studying architecture, and I actually started studying architecture as well at the university, and he told me that we are starting a new project, and we are looking for guys who know how to model and do stuff in 3D. And back then there was Tomáš, was the graphic designer, who was like making the concepts and the general ideas, and Havran, David Spáčil, who was basically the other guy on Fish Fillets, who was making the graphic together with him. I showed him some portfolio of mine, and he showed me some concept of his, and he told me, if you could prepare this model of a car, futuristic for this game. And so I went home, and during 1 week I prepared this model, and I animated it a bit also, because it was supposed to, there was this, in American cars, they have the ability to switch from wheels to how do you call it?
The morphlings?
The morphlings, yeah, the wheel changing into tracks, yeah, that's it. And so I made the animation of this wheel changing into this track-like structure, this triangular, and returned, and she came back and showed it to Havran, and he was like, "Whoa, you can even animate! That's great! That's handy."
We were students, or just we had just ended my study of computer science in Brno University, and it was a great experience. I like these moments when our office were very cheap, one in the basement, some others maybe. mention this. And this project of fish fillets continues with this great original war, and that was continuing with UFO Aftermath, which I worked on later with Altar. But years later, the Altar was changed or disappears in some way. So the project of Original War was the great in this feeling of that we are working in a great game, and all of us can give opinion and work together for some great thing. It was very different than some standards of software development now.
It was a very fun time. It was I make it between school and sport, and in the middle time I work on Original War. It was not my full-time job. It was more like a fun group of friends who make this game. We try some possibilities, how are games, how make games. It's not that we know something about it. We learn in the process and try different possibilities.
We made this game from this design and these graphic components, and showed it to the guys from Virgin Interactive back then, or maybe others as well, I don't remember. But these guys were basically, what they told us, it's nice concept, but the graphic is not what's these days, it's not like up to date, it doesn't look good. And so I remember it was something like spring time of, I don't know whether it was like a year after or something like that. What we did, we basically sit, and over the summer holidays, we completely remade everything and sent the new screenshots where basically the graphic looks more or less like the final version. I remember the first sentence that we received from them was impressive improvement.
Nice.
And that meant, and after probably some negotiations and discussions made by Martin and other guys in charge with the producers,
trying to get marketing interested, they were going to OEM it, which is where we bundle it with other games, which I wasn't entirely happy with, and I certainly wasn't happy with the cover that they provided, but at least it meant that there was a good chance of it earning out so that Alter would actually see some royalties. I'm pretty sure they did get some royalties. I couldn't tell you how much. I wasn't, involved directly in that. But I certainly, from my side of the budget, as a producer, Virgin got their money back and made some money out of it. Not a huge amount, but at least it wasn't a loss.
We got the money and the contract, which was like, back then I didn't understand how completely random it was, right? How incredibly lucky we were. Now I see like it was really like, if somebody told me, like me now knowing how the industry works, that we would make it, I would look at him and think like, are you crazy? There are hundreds of companies who can do the same, even better, but we were lucky and we made it and we got the contract.
I liked the game and we had a good few drinks, and I liked their ideas. I liked the fact that they were trying to do something a bit different. At that time, the idea of the unit combination stuff was new. The focus on people as being the prime resource rather than just gathering, sort of immaterial stuff. And I loved the story that they'd got for the thing. So that all of those things that already existed, and they had lots of storyboards and they had a little bit of working code. Might have even been another E3 before I finally managed to get enough other people interested, so that at that time Virgin Interactive were prepared to put a bit of money into the project.
Guys, we have a deal that we will pay you some money per month, or that you are actually working here for some money per month, but we don't have the money. So from time to time, we will bring you some money, but we will, we will have a list, and once we have the contract, we will pay you what we owe you. And so I remember first half of the year, at least, maybe even whole year, basically my back then girlfriend, now wife, was the one who was feeding me because I had no money.
They saw it as peripheral at the start. So it was very much, we had reasonable success with Mythos and Revolution's Broken Sword, and things were going strong. And at that time, Virgin seemed to be doing reasonably well. We had the Command & Conquer series and things going well as well, and of course Capcom. Mm-hmm. So they were dubious about putting a lot of money in because they felt that the game was likely to slip a lot, and they felt that it was not a perfect portfolio fit because, of course, we had the real-time strategy genre Command & Conquer, and while I was emphasising the differences, to a marketing team, it looked pretty similar at the time. They didn't look very deeply at the game. That was just how they saw it.
How was it at the E3 presentation of the game? What do you think? What were your thoughts back then? Where you'd be there?
It was the one in London, right?
I think so. E3 2000, if I'm correct.
I remember that we were working on some presentation. We made some animations of the Eon. Of the Eon.
That's bringing some of it back to me. Yes, okay, and I do remember some of how that went down as well, because I didn't get all of that. Mm-hmm. But we knew that with our release window, the game had to be shown at that E3. So I remember actually Martin and was it Vlada with him?
Yes, Vlada.
They were both out at E3 with me, and they were programming the demo the night before we went live, presenting it on the floor at E3. So they were still coding literally right up to when I had to shoo them away and say okay, and then I had to stand there and start trying to show American journalists and people the game.
I remember that the trip to E3 was very funny because we were driving in a van at the night in heavy rain, and there was a lot of funny situations. There was almost a crash, and then on E3, I remember I won the T-shirt in Quake tournament because I was the only one who killed someone called Coralina, who was like a master of these days. I was appearing in front of her, so she basically killed herself by killing myself, and it was the only moment when she was killed in the whole E3 tournament. So wow. It was pretty funny.
Oh. From our end, we made anything that was possible. Problem was that back then the Virgin Interactive, who was the owner or the publisher, I don't know what was the situation back there, but it ended up in them being bought by the French Titus.
I think I secured it was about 150,000, something like that, originally, to help Ultra along, and that was what got us in the original contract and got us started. And to support that, my input was really to try and get marketing and localization services sorted out for them, and I would visit them in Prague, in Brno. It would have been probably about once a month, I think. It became pretty obvious pretty soon on that it was not going to be enough money, and it was not going to be finished when they were hoping. And at this time, pretty bad things started happening at Virgin. Half the marketing department left, I think, and there was a lot of furore. And what seemed to, from my limited perspective, to be kind of like completely out of the blue, Titus bought Virgin.
From what I remember, the guys in Titus, they basically killed a huge amount of projects that were in development. And I think the only reason why they didn't kill us was that we, even though we were slightly slipping, we were not able to deliver it on time. We didn't want any extra money, so they probably told themselves, okay, so they are pretty cheap and they will deliver whatever.
They did not want to give also any more money to finish the game, so I was between a rock and a hard place. I mean, we'd invested 150,000 by this time, and we weren't going to get a game because there was no way else we were going to finish it in that time, and without more money. And Titus was saying no more money. They were also saying that they sacked basically all of Virgin in the US, and that was just Titus. So I lost all the US side of the localization, and that was where the real-time strategy following was at its strongest. So that was a bit of a blow as well.
I remember vaguely some messages that the leaders, the guys who were in charge of our company, they told us when they were negotiating and talking first with the Virgin guys and then with the Titus guys, that one of the reasons that also they took our project was that I don't know what was the name of the guy who was in charge of Titus. He kind of liked the original war. He played it actually, and which was also I don't remember. I can imagine how lucky we were among this. I don't know. I presume at least tens, maybe even up to 100 projects that the Titus was, or inherited from Virgin and had their own. He picked our one project and tried to play it for a while and liked it. So I remember that they were describing how he was actually asking them, guys, so this one, how do you play this mission? I wasn't able to go through this line of defense, so something like that he asked them. So it was evidence that he really played the game and he really liked it. So so I think probably better than marketing outside was our inside marketing, like talking to these leaders, these guys who were in charge in Titus, and so they let us finish the project. But the truth is that from what I've heard, the Titus back then also went into some problems, and so the release of the game was unfortunately completely busted, I would say. I don't think there was hardly any promo made for with the release, and so the game basically got lost in time.
How did you feel at the time when you got to know that it wasn't possible to add the Arabian campaign in time?
I was a little bit sad. It's true, because I think that it will be a very good part of game, but we have no time for this, for make all campaigns for Arabic part, and I think that the time was the main problem, that we have strict time on the end of creating this game. Not in beginning. In beginning it was planned, but time was very, very short. So in the end.
Yeah, basically, the thing is, the original idea was that the company would be the American one and the Arabian one, because we were told that Russians were, I would say, it was too obvious enemy. I think, like in Red Alert were Russians, and everywhere were something, or in action movies, everybody. So it was kind of like everybody already was filled up. Russians. So our idea was to make some new enemies, and because there was this fight for the resources, right? And the main resources, the oil and gas, is produced, or at least the oil is in around the Middle East. So this Arab territory. So we were thinking that this is like the first enemy that would come to mind when in the future, suddenly nobody needs the oil. So the Arabs would try to find out, basically, what went wrong, and change it back so that they are the ones who are in charge. But then, while discussing this with the guys from Virgin, we switched back to this American-Russian, basically, division, because it was, I would say, expected. And the Arabs were supposed to be some sort of like data disk, I presume. And we even planted some original ideas, and you can meet actually some of the named characters like the Heike.
The campaign was changed. The American and Russian campaign was changed to include some ideas of from this original Arabian campaign. So it was not lost. It was used some other way. And I think this graphics for this Arabian mercenaries was used. I think it was included some great way, I think.
For Arabian unit, I did some concept arts, but I was responsible for design of American units. So I think Honza Krátký was doing Russians. I was doing Americans, and in fact, I don't remember who did Arabians.
I think that I work on I think effects like combustions, flames, waterfalls, and so different small parts, different small animations. We have more older sketches, pictures, and 3D models, and it was very different from final versions.
Basically, my contribution for the final version of Original War mainly are the characters, the modeling of the characters, the animations of the characters, and then, of course, the saber-toothed tigers, the mammoths, and the ape-mans. And then, of course, there were other characters, there were other animals, but I don't think they actually made it into the final game. Like there were some like these ants, like deer-like animals who were running around. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was one guy, one designer, his nickname was Drastiak, and he was designing the missions. And because he loved these animals and these animations, he populated these missions with these animals quite a lot. But because the animals and it was compared to anything else, it was skinned animation. So back then, I don't think there were any specific like graphic card functions that would handle skinning objects on bones. So it was all computed, I think, on processor, and so it was really heavy on processing. Mm-hmm. And and because he put these animals into these missions quite a lot. The designers who then started, the coders who then started to optimize the game, looked at it and they told him like, wait a minute, these animals and these animations, it takes up like, I don't know, 70% of the processor power. We cannot handle it. The game must run, and we don't have enough power to run these animations as well. And he got upset, and he removed every animal, all the animals from all the missions. They basically pissed him, so he's like, okay, screw you guys.
This project was based on technology which is considered obsolete for many years now, but I liked it, and it was great to combine this Delphi, Pascal, logical programming, and some assembler coding for some graphic optimizations. It was great, but the project of UFO and some other projects was made in C++ and these systems, so I was forced to change for this technical way. So I think that it was great. Even now it looks very strange for programmers these years. But I like this original idea of creating our own technology. I like it, and it is great you are trying to develop this some way now. But in this, I think it's very difficult.
The problem with Winds was it was not animated. It was not animations, but regarding moved pixels on the screen, it takes some power from computers.
It was always that was something that was always a bit of a problem with Alta, because Martin in particular is quite a perfectionist. And what I was looking for is all games go through phases, and the size of the phases varies on the type of the game. But the first phase, if you like, I would say is the creative phase of the game. And unfortunately, what often happens is artists get involved, in my opinion, too early.
This is the original idea of what the environment and the trees and the land should look like. It was basically, we had like a texture for a slope made of rocks, directed in 6 directions, and the editor basically was able to generate this like tile texture that looked like this, and these are the first one, the second, and the third is already made like from Bryce. For the specific environment.
Art, if you produce a lot of art, the cost of producing a piece of art isn't going to be cheaper on day 10. It's going to be the same price on day 10 as it is on day 1. Okay, but on day 1, there's a fair chance you do the wrong art because you haven't got your game dynamics sorted out. You might need to tweak your story to fit the game dynamic. There's all sorts of things you might do. But if you've got artists and you've got game programmers, then you start doing your art assets in your game at the same time, and that can result in you having to throw quite a lot of stuff away. See what I mean?
Yes.
Either because your game editor is using the wrong format files, or who knows what. All sorts of problems can happen. So in that sense, I suppose one of my criticisms is that they kind of took on too many people too soon and tried to round the game out as if they got out of the creative phase when actually they were still in what I would call the creative phase. And the creative phase is when you just want probably a maximum, I would say, of 6 or 7 people on the team, and your it doesn't matter if your gameplay involves you chasing triangles around. You'll have at least one artist on the team at that point, and they'll be doing sketches and they'll be telling you it's going to look like this, but it doesn't need to look like that at that stage. That's where you're working things out. And if you do that phase well, then you go to what I call the asset production phase. And there your programmers are now rounding out multiplayer and all these other things. They can be fairly well planned and calculated and can therefore be estimated in terms of progress. You can milestone them and stuff like that. And likewise, once you've got that, you can do your art assets as well, because for example, I've got 7 basic units on the Arabic side, I've got 7 basic units on the American side. I need to work out the art for those. I've got to produce those, and I know roughly how long each one's going to take, so 7 times that number gives me a result, and I can therefore say either more artists to get it done sooner, or if it's fewer artists, I can work out how long it'll take. So the asset production stage is relatively controllable. You can plan it, you can work out how much it's going to cost you and how long it's going to take. The key problem that and if this isn't just Alta, this is many games development companies, is, as I say, they get pushed by their publisher sometimes, and sometimes reluctantly. That might have been me having to push them to do it, to go into the asset production phase before they're really ready. And what that results in is a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted assets, and of course, as I said, if the formats and things aren't worked out, if the pipelines, the asset production pipelines and the integrations aren't all worked out, you can end up burning an awful lot of time reworking stuff and fiddling around with stuff. And Alter hadn't built a game of this ilk. There's nothing like having done one before as to make it more predictable. So I don't hold any of this against them in any way. I'm just saying this, that's how it was. So a lot of the progress reports I took with a pinch of salt, and sure enough, we did have to try and find more money and more time. And in the end, we had to say, we don't have time to do all of these extra assets. We don't have the time or the money. It would be a missed opportunity.
There was multiple problems with presenting our projects, but I remember that Paul Whipp was very friendly, and we tried to present what we were, and I think that Martin Klima managed it some way, so Paul Whipp remember us in a good way.
I just remember that actually it looked at this period of time when we made Original War that the project is doomed, because if I remember correctly, the Virgin Interactive was supposed to be distributor, and then Virgin bankrupted. Was it Original War? I think so.
Yes, it was Titus, but there was this problem.
The rest of game, and I think even Titus bankrupted or had some problems with finances. So one of the problems with Original War was that it had very bad marketing, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember from these days the building you had on the picture. It was the second offices of Altar Interactive, but first offices were in the house of one old lady, and I think we began the making of Original War in the old building, and when the people from Virgin arrived first time, we had to make something like do you know what is Potemkin's village?
No, I'm sorry.
It's
yes, it's a Russian way of creating a non-existing presentation.
Yeah, exactly. So we were making like offices and look the offices great, full of tables and chairs and computers, and it didn't look like that at this time at the beginning. So people from Virgin came, saw it, they said, wow, it looks great, it's a big company, and then they
we borrowed some tables and computers.
Yeah. Look. In these days, from this perspective, it looks like when Apple started in garage or something like that, because in fact the office wall was also almost underground. It was in the room which was half underground.
Yeah. From first time it was on the beginning it was more of a group of fans, and in the end it was like you said more professional team that can make other games like UFO. Yes, we sleep on the floor, on the tables where was space. We work on the night in the night because we go to school, and we have we like sports. Yes, but on the beginning, on the end, it was more professional. It was we work on in day, and
I think maybe one day we can put together some stories from these days, because there was a lot of interesting stories about this old lady. Her name was Svobodova, and on the ring bell she had Bereta Svobodova, and we were thinking that Bereta is her first name, but then we found out that it's some old gentleman who was living with her, and
but it was a great name for gun.
Okay.
Mr. Beretta was originally a miner from Ostrava, and he was old. He was, these days when we were young, he was like 70 years old. But I remember that, we graphic designers and programmers were not very strong, and we were moving some couch or table or something, and three of us were fighting with it, and we couldn't take it upstairs, and Mr. Beretta was running around, and he just said, "Oh, let it go," and he grabbed it himself and took it upstairs. So things like this. Originally, the company was Altar, and Martin Klima made a remake of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in Czech Republic after a revolution, and it was called Dragon's Nest, Dračí doupě. And
Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, and the logo of the company was like Viking helmet, and it looked a little bit like the scoop, and Mrs. Svobodová, when we moved in the cellar, in the basement, and when she saw it, I think I was there with Tomáš Kučerovský going for the lunch, and she was very in conspirational theories. So when she saw it, she said, "Okay, you are guys something like
Illuminati? I don't know.
The Masons, like Masons organization.
Freemason is the word.
Yeah, secret Masons organizations." And we said no, we are just the game developing company, and she just smiled because she thought, okay, they are definitely secret Masons organization. Yeah, so things like this.
Apparently someday you went to meet Altar with Joss Ellis.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember Joss. Yeah.
And you are actually testing multiplayer for the first time, and it seemed like the multiplayer connection didn't actually happen. So Martin Klima said that we proudly introduced them to brand new multiplayer and set them up against each other. After a short while, they got acquainted with the controls and went for exploration. About this time, we had a feeling that something went wrong. They both got to the opposite end of the map without meeting each other. Finally, they met the forces that should have been controlled by the other player, but that were actually controlled by the AI, and it mercilessly wiped them out. Later, we found out that the games were never really connected. So, can you recall that happening, or maybe was it too long ago?
I love the sound of it. I honestly can't remember, but it's certainly not impossible. Stranger things have happened. From memory, the AI being mercilessly wiping us out, I find that a little bit tough to swallow. There were a lot of troubles with getting the AI to do anything very smart to begin with, but it's entirely possible.
The idea of our scripting language named Sail was based on some Vláďa Chvátil ideas. I liked it originally, but now, later and now, I think this free-form language with no type control and something is funny, but it is not my favorite now. I think that Vláďa Chvátil can agree with me that making some scripting language in these days, we will choose some more specific language with type control and something more structure controlling. In fact, I do not like this scripting in Lua and something like this, which is used recently. But it was great, and this Sail was used for creating artificial intelligence and missions logic and we were plenty of some other extra programmers or designing programmers which was using this our own language. So it was a great part of the development.
I don't know if it's in the final game, but I remember that programmers make some wind in this game that move a little bit with trees and with grass, and it was very interesting. But I think that it was not in the final game because it was too much.
We actually made it possible in a game patch not long ago. So now it is in the final game. Mm-hmm.
Yes, oh, it's nice.
Yeah.
I remember one of the craziest thing that almost everybody was working on as people were coming and taking part of the project was the grass.
Oh.
Because it was nobody wanted to do it, and because it was painful, it was like several different types of the grass, and you had to paint all these variations of them being the grass being stamped on or driven over, and it was like really annoying and it was basically like a pixel art, it was. I remember because the game is like hexagonal, right? There are these hexagonal like ground like structures, tiles, yes. And so what was the assignment was take this hexagonal shape, and I don't remember how many pixels it was, maybe 20 something wide. And you had a pen, like 1 pixel wide pen, and you had to paint all the grass piece by piece, and then make it look more like flattened. So you had to you basically painted it again, but slightly shorter, and make it random look because it had to be several variations, and it was really pain in the ass. And so basically everybody who was working on the project, at least for a while, was painting the grass.
We make in 3D full model, but it was not joint model. It has parts like cannons and engines, and that was rendered separately. I remember that it takes a very long time that we prepare correct animation for rendering from all sides of vehicles.
I also remember when we were working on because as I said at the beginning, there was this idea of making everything basically like from components. So that what we wanted to do is, for example, make as the game is basically a role RPG, right? You can build your characters and you can train them. So we wanted the characters to be recognizable, at least partially, or make them like at least the basic, like whether it has brown hair, black hair, or whether it is bald character. We wanted not only have the unique faces, but at least partially also being recognizable as the figures in the game. So you can see when you see on the interface a character that has black hair, the character's figure in the game also has black hair.
Yes.
And so the thing was that we had the models were made as basically a body and then a head separated separately. And so all the bodies, all the animations were made in these 6 directions, and basically the same system was then used for the vehicles. There was a dot, a small object made with bright color like RGB, like I don't know 100% red or something like that. For example, in the middle of the neck, where the head is supposed to be placed. And So what the game did is it took the character's body in appropriate direction and the animation on it, and then it took a separate rendered head and aligned the head with the red dot in the place of the neck. Mm-hmm. And so I remember once it was almost the end of the project, and because I was animating these characters and also the vehicles and everything, and all over the places were tons of dots, like for example on the vehicles you can switch the tracks with the wheels.
Yes.
There were dots for the wheels, there were dots for the tracks, there were dots for the weapons, there were dots for the engines. Everything was made like this. And the characters have these dots on the necks. And one day when I was going to work on the tram, a girl came into the tram and she had a piercing, a dot basically here. And I looked at her and I thought myself, she has the dot on the wrong place. Her head won't fit. I was so deformed with the dots on the necks.
Do you remember testing the game yourself in your office?
Oh yes, I certainly remember testing the game, and in fact, at an E3 probably 1 or 2 after when we first met them, when I had the demo version of the game that actually played reasonably well. I remember that I was able to. I personally I was never a great producer because I didn't enjoy the glitzy side of the business of trying to do the financing. I always wanted to program and just play the strategy games and work out the gameplay. Mm-hmm. It was where I got some serious time with the game, and I was able to get to grips with the order entry system. You remember the shift clicking to enter the orders and coordinating attacks. And I very much felt that if people got into that, it was because at the time that was really distinctive. That was an excellent element of the game, and I did enjoy playing.
In the connection with the animations, that I think it's the only weak spot of this game is that the characters cannot run. And I remember because when we were first working on it and designing it, and I was animating the characters, we were thinking, I wanted them to be able to run, because it's really stupid when you are attacking and the running animation would be longer, and we wouldn't know, how to connect it, and so basically then the design, it would get too complicated. So it was made the decision that the characters will only walk.
Yeah.
Which is really, I would say, pity.
It is.
Yeah.
So maybe if you are actually able to somehow add running into the game, that would be amazing achievement, guys.
Yeah.
And the grenades, I think there were grenades planned as well.
They are not implemented. Maybe they were not. There was this a missile launchers or something like that. No, I don't remember now. There was another problem with these slow-moving missiles, because and that's I don't know actually whether it's in original war, but I remember when we were then working on UFO Aftermath, we had a big problem because every weapon, when the weapon was shot, when you shoot the weapon, you immediately, when you basically make the shot, you also know the result in the code. But when you have slow-moving weapons, like missiles, like grenades or something like that, you have to wait till the end of the animation, or this, the projectile moves and hits the target to actually show the result. So I remember, I'm not sure whether it was original war or the UFO, that we had a problem that when the attacker basically made an attack, and the character, the target was hit, he started to play that dying animation before the weapon actually reached him.
Right.
Oh.
So, and also there was a problem. What happens when somebody else kills him before this weapon, this projectile reaches him? So there was this, and maybe that's one of the reasons why the grenades were not then implemented in original war, because this design issues and stuff.
The main strengths, as I saw it, were the way in which the people and being able to control and take back control of the vehicles, and the fact that you had the ability to coordinate movements, so you could do sneaky things like attack and retreat on shift click, and then nick a guy in to get a vehicle off the other side and things. Those were the bits that I really that stand out to me after all this time as great gaming moments. Getting somebody in position so that they can overlook and watch what's going on, somebody coming in then from the north and south so that you can sort of tease something away from the other side. Because typically most RTSs, you don't really do that very much. You just look for different ways to destroy the other side.
Well, the Bryce was made for like the overall structure of the environment, like the hills, the valleys, also the river banks and everything. But the waterfall itself, the Bryce doesn't. I don't think it supported like something like some shader for water. Mm-hmm. Maybe it supported some shader for like the water like surface. Even though I'm not sure about that either, because I think even the wavy ripples on the surface of the rivers, which is visible from time to time somewhere, there is some like flowing. It was also like painted in a Photoshop by me, and basically like a loop animation of, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 like sequence of this like wavy like structure. So it was more or less like just a white shady thing that was then put into the place where the water is supposed to be, and it made it look like there are some like waves. And the same with the waterfalls. The I don't know, the rocks or the cliff and everything was modeled in Bryce.
Yes.
But the water itself, the thing that like makes it look like there is something falling down, it was hand painted.
We make some special designs like likes or waterfalls and some details. We have more layers and merging. I think that merging layers was made in Photoshop. We have layers with rocks, layers with sand, and more layers that we compose in Photoshop.
If you be so kind and let us know what you think about this first big map that we came up with.
From the graphic point of view, it's hard to say because it's a typical picture from Bryce, of course without water and grass and trees. And I don't know from the game design point of view. Because as I said, I didn't play, in fact, Original War too much, so I see some heights and probably some places where there will be water.
And it's quite a big map. So, and these like this browny like patches, it's supposed to be some swamp or something like that. It will be like some heavy terrain. Yeah, nice. So and all these other so these rocky structures are like hills, right?
Yeah.
Everything goes up, nothing goes down. Like looks like everything is basically uphill.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like the center is in the middle, and I mean, like is the lowest, and then everything rises up from it. Yeah. It's readable. It's nice. It's understandable. Mm-hmm. And once you add the vegetation, it will look okay. I guess it might work great. There are these plateaus for designing bases, so placing it's great.
Actually, I was surprised when I saw it that Bryce is Bryce still existing, or you made it from old textures?
No, it is still existing. I've been using Bryce, and I've been helped by the community as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bryce is still there.
because it sounds like a dinosaur for me. So.
It is a very dinosaur-like software, I must admit. The interface is a bit confusing, so I can't even imagine on your side back then trying to learn how to use it without having so much resource on the internet as I had.
No, I don't even think that there was any editor at these days.
It was trying. We have not too much tutorials. It was only trying at night, and so on. But I don't use 3D Studio. I don't use from this time. I try only once after making these games, and it was only for design some part of my flat, but no other works in 3D Studio.
I remember working on this. I was a programmer and a designer on this. But I like this graphic too, but I am afraid it looks obsolete now. So what do you mean, David? It is. Are you able to look at it now?
Well, we were a little bit talking before you connected that in fact I liked to make games more than to play them. So in fact I am not. Of course, the games now are looking much more realistic, but in fact, I like games which are somehow stylized. So for me, it's actually fine, and I think at this time the design was really nice. So yeah. Yeah, actually, I am thinking when I am looking at it now that because I'm for last few months I am experimenting with AI generated pictures and videos, and in fact maybe it would be possible to take the old graphics and remake it using AI. That it would make more frames and what are you using for upscale? I don't know, Topaz Gigapixel or something else?
Using Stable Diffusion, I've also tried getting at some characters done, using the most realistic view possible of them.
I think the strength of Face Editor was that you could make any face you wanted from the pieces which were compatible, which I don't know if from these pictures from Stable Diffusion you are able to do the same thing, but maybe.
Yeah.
That's combining, yes.
Yeah, that's our goal. That's why we are trying to do it. All face elements one by one, so the eyes, and then we render the mouth, etc. But it's a bit tricky because obviously we need to try and print a good result a few times in a row to get actually something that looks nice. But I think it is very promising, a good way to try and bring some more life to the game.
I like this images of this faces based on Tomáš Kučerovský created these drawings, but I'm afraid that today's players are embarrassed with our old UI with the low resolution a lot. So it's a good idea to try to enhance it some way.
I as I said before, it's amazing what you are doing with these guys, and the truth is that I don't want to, as I said at the beginning, this is the best, I think, game that I've worked on since, even though it was the first one, but maybe because it was the first one, but the design of the game, the story is amazing, and back then I played a lot of Dune and Command and Conquer and stuff like this, so I love this kind of games, and Original War is I think it moves these games up to another level, with these RPG elements and everything. So the fact that you are still working on it is great. And I think I remember that but I'm a graphic designer and animator, so I don't have any depth, like insight into coding and stuff like this, not very much. I just knew what was supposed to be done and how to design something for the graphic. So, but I presume that the guys who were in charge for this code handling and stuff, they supported you, or they gave you whatever you need, because it's really amazing what you are doing, and I hope that it will be still fun for you, and that other gamers and other players will like what you are doing and play the game still, because and this what I see here in the end, like this what you added, probably I don't remember from the design. This game modifications here in the end, like this campaign, skirmish, multiplayer interface and stuff like this. That's really cool. That that you have it there and that it works.
We actually found some emails that were actually in the source code, and there is a message that you wrote to Altar. So I quote from you. If you are happy to do so, I'd like to have a play with the editor and script too. I can probably get a copy of Delphi if required. We will not ship the editor with the game, but we'll aim to make more money out of it by producing a mission disc and generate ongoing interest by releasing it on the net a few months after the game ships.
Good intentions. I said, I honestly don't remember saying that, but that was the way I felt, and I think that was why I was so happy when I saw that kind of thing was actually happening. And of course, as I've already mentioned, I'm a programmer first and foremost myself, so I think at that point where I was looking at other options. I didn't intend to stay as a producer with Virgin, and at that time I may well have been thinking about helping them independently and trying to make that happen. But instead, in the end, I went to Australia. So.
At the time, I am one of the, I don't want to say the first players, but at least in my country, from what I know, I'm from Argentina, and playing this game in 2002, around that time, it had such an impact on me because of the graphics, but not only that, all the different characteristics of the game, the features, everything. And I remember when you released the editor, I remember the sense of humor. Like, if you're crazy enough to use it, I think if you can recall, someone said that on the page, and I was crazy enough. And thanks to that, I'm still here in this community. And yeah, I don't think the graphics don't look. I mean, they look really good still up to nowadays, but it depends obviously on the taste as well, on the different other things. But by all means, this is a very, very great game, and yeah, I think it still has a lot of potential. We are trying to squeeze every part of it.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I am looking at it now, I think. More disturbing for me would be that that it's not moving fluently, but that it's like a lower frame rate, because the games these days usually move very fluently. Yeah.
It was even, and this is animation that you found there, or you made?
No, the community made it a few days ago. Yes.
It looks amazing. It's really good. And so you think like you plan that the frog could even attack with the tongue? Yeah,
it would be fun.
The frog looks really nice. Maybe if it's supposed to be some like prehistoric frog. I would imagine it could have like saber tooth or something like that. No, just for fun,
Yeah.
But it's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. Like doing this stuff. It's really crazy and nice. I really love you are doing.
How do you feel actually knowing that the community is still making content for the game?
It's very interesting. I like mods, modifications in games because I like games. I try some games in this time too, but not creating, only playing. I think it was very interesting game in this time, and now too. It was very specific feeling, and I think that it's not only honestly game, but it's created for fun, and talking messages and speaking in this game. It was written very funny.
Maybe you have some better editing abilities than we was when we was creating the game, as there was some combination of the sale programming and some values. Our experience was very limited, so I think we have some great result, but the way maybe cannot be optimal. But I don't remember it, so I remember it was great, and that's all. I like it. But I am happy to hear you are talking about the multiplayer. In fact, most of the many fans follows the story and some other parts of the game, but I like this principles of this real-time strategy development in this in the mission. So my favorite part of the game is a multiplayer. When can I use our technology tree to beat my opponents in a single mission? And this is what I like. It is better than some other real-time strategies of these times. So I like this principle of the design of the game itself.
We spoke about the Arabian campaign. The community actually created the Arabian campaign itself.
It must be interesting. Try this campaign. I think that we make some missions. We have preparing this, but I think was not finished. No, any mission was finished because I think we started with American missions, Russian missions, and time was closed.
So that's a Russian vehicle, as you can see, and then they
nice.
Yeah, they released their modification for OW in a CD as well.
This is amazing, guys.
Yeah.
It's like like it's back then there were no 3D printers, but this is really cool that you made it like this. It's like really it really looks like the vehicles from the game. Like constructive criticism I would have is that if the guns were placed like this, the vehicle wouldn't be able to shoot more than like plus minus 10 degrees around him.
True. Actually.
So maybe if the turret would be either higher, or when I'm looking now from to the screenshots that are from the game on the video you sent. I think the guns were actually basically turned up from the main console, I would say, so that you can turn the guns like 360 degrees around. But this one looks amazing as well, so just But still, it's like actually, what first thing that came to my mind when I saw it is somebody should make a board game, Original War.
Oh yeah, it would be fun.
When you have like models like this, it could be interesting. It would be like sort of like Warcraft style, the Warhammer style game.
Oh.
So you can see there is a 3D printed Russian vehicle.
Oh, it's very nice.
Yeah.
But it's nice. This model is very nice.
Well, it's great. It's unbelievable that someone takes the old design from the game and makes a 3D model. I like it.
Sounds very good. I am a programmer, but I have this 3D printer, one of this and some other in the other room, just for fun. So
very nice.
I like this. It looks funny. You can see I have found a T-shirt, the last T-shirt with altar on it.
That's true.
Oh yes.
I wish he'd done our original marketing for us, eh? Is that 3D printed, that model?
Yeah, it is, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I like the shirt. And you've got the eventual third campaign as the theme on the shirt as well. Very nice.
Do you know maybe if there were merchandising which was meant to happen, or is it maybe too specific?
I don't think it was a big enough game for Virgin to have allocated merchandising and things for it. So I'm fairly sure that would not have happened. But I may be wrong. But again, it was very much, I think probably within, I don't think it had been out for 3 months before I left Virgin. So, it was pretty close. I mean, to be honest, I think I would have left Virgin a lot sooner if it wasn't for Alta. I didn't want to leave them in the lurch. So there was them, and there was another company in Northern England that were trying to get a game out as well. And that was Machines, which I don't think ever did very well. But I wanted to see those things at least as finished as I could see them. Rather than leaving them to try and deal with a company that soon did in fact go bust. So.
You mentioned the game boxes in our conversation on Skype. What do you remember of their production, and what could have been done better in that regard?
I think everything could have been done better in that regard. I mean, it was, as I said, it was a time when our communication with marketing was poor. Marketing, I remember several times arranging to do detailed demos with their product manager to try to help them get to see what the game was, to see what its appeal was and what sort of players it would be generating. But they were in turmoil over the takeover and things like that, and I don't think they ever really got it. The box was pretty awful. And I think the marketing for the game did let it down.
Perhaps a bit more, like it was perhaps linked to the lack of funding too, which you mentioned.
Yes, I mean these things are all kind of linked. I mean, with the company in turmoil like that, people were not well motivated across the board. There was a lot of feeling, I think, at Virgin that people were going to be fired because they fired the whole American office. I think the people in the UK that were in charge of the marketing of the game felt that their jobs were going to be short-lived, so they weren't particularly well motivated to do these things. It was an unfortunate, it was just unfortunate timing for Alta in that sense.
The game was actually advertised in many magazines. I have two pictures to illustrate this. It's uploading.
It was one of the. Are you talking about UK magazines? PC format?
UK magazine, PC format. I think yes. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
if I have a picture right now.
I basically banged on the doors of journos and did the review work and legwork to do a few of the UK ones. Yeah, I'm just looking at the page you just put up. Yeah, I think I can take some credit for these. I think yes, that was It's coming back to me now, actually. They were based in Bristol, if I remember correctly, in the UK. And I actually went to their offices with the game, in fact, with several copies of the game, and got them, rather than just sending them discs and saying review it, I went there, got it set up. Sorry, that's my dog coughing in the background.
No
After I told you they were quiet. I went down there and I played the game with them, and got them to really have a look at it and showed them what was special about it. So the second one you've posted is less familiar to me. I'm just looking at that one now. All right, yes, this was probably done by Martin and Alta themselves, wasn't it? Somewhere, yeah. I have a sneaking feeling. I think I once at this point I actually remember saying to Martin, I said, "Look, I said, don't ask. I said it's better to ask forgiveness. If he wants to go out there and get a journo to give him a review or something, I basically told him the way things are at the moment. Yes, their contract said they had to clear it all with us, but as far as I was concerned, there's very, very few things are bad publicity for a game, especially if it's being enthusiastically presented by someone like Martin. So I was all for that happening.
I remember that in the reviews on Original War was very negative thing that Original War is not 3D, that it's only 2D game, but I think that for this game it's better because it's every pixel had something, had
uniqueness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In America, I didn't like it too much. Martin Klima said that it was most likely linked to the dubbing, the English dubbing, which was performed by British voice actors, which were imitating American accent.
I actually had hired, with the help of a chap called Phil Morris, I think it was him. In the UK, I hired 6 actors, and they basically did all of the voices, with me just voicing the other parts, in a couple of evenings in London. Yeah. So not the best voice track, not the best soundtrack ever, but again, we had to get something out the door. I mean, because there was no more money, and the guys Alta deserved to get some sort of return out of the game. I think one of my actors was actually American, from memory, but I'm certainly not going to say he was wrong there. It did not go well in America. If it was down to the dubbing, then yeah, that's a shame. But as I said, I lost it. I originally had, the American office would have been doing it, should have been doing it, but that didn't happen. But yes, I mean, and I have to admit the voice actor guys and things. We were all saying this is really hard to do because we didn't record it the way we wanted to record it, because I had to do, because of the budget, I just had these guys in one at a time for a session, so they weren't able to bounce off each other in any way. We were basically doing our best to get the emotion and the feel in the lines, and it wasn't a good way to do it. It wasn't that unusual at that time to do them in that way, but if I'd, as originally hoped, I was going to use the Westwood facilities to do all this, that when the Virgin office in the US was going to run it, I would have been out with probably seeing Brett and Pete out there, and they would have prepared that, and I think it would have gone down much, much better.
The Czech voice lines, they were recorded locally, as in maybe some of you at Altar took part in the recordings. Did you take part?
Well, actually, no, not me. It was recorded by professional actors, but my girlfriend was actually in charge of directing, or not directing, but she was producing basically the localization for the Czech game. But it was a bit hectic, because it was the end of the project and there was not much time. So it was quite like, even though the actors who were hired were quite good ones, because those were actors who were used to make dubbing voiceovers for foreign movies, so they were used to record voiceover act for movies and stuff like this, but they never worked on a computer game, so it was really new for them as well. But I remember we were recording. It took 1 week only. It was really hectic. It was took quite a short time, and And the same basically was also with the Russian intros. Actually, it was. I remember it was. I was recording it. I mean, we were shooting it normally as a video footage. I remember one of the. I'm not sure now whether. I think it's. There is in the Russian campaign. There is. We hired some actors who were performing the soldiers, the leaders of the Russian faction. Who were speaking there, the scientists there as well.
Yeah.
Those were also like actors from theaters here from Brno. And I remember I think there was some scene from a lab, from some like Russian lab. And it was, I back then knew some people here on a veterinary university in Brno. And we went there and they had this, laboratory with some equipment, so we were shooting there like some Russian scientists exploring the effects of cyber or Alaska night as they knew it. It was fun also. The American intro, it was Tomáš Kučerovský was drawing it, and it was recorded while he was really like painting the pictures, and so it was sort of like real time. And then I made in 3D. I made the notebook turning around the page of the notebook, and I remember because back then it was too expensive to have like a video sequence in a game. So it's not a video. It's actually, or the page turning. It's just one short like sequence of images. But we needed to place the drawings onto the diary as well. And because the paper is deformed and it turns, so the picture is supposed to be deformed and turning with the page as well. So we made this, again, Vláďa Chvátil made this program that was basically, I rendered this page turning with empty page. And then I rendered a page which had vertical and horizontal lines separately. And the program was able to read the deformation of the lines, like RGB, 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 and adjust the flat picture of the drawing and deform it so that it fits the deformations of the lines on the paper, and animated it in real time with the page, so it was also really like, nobody would think about this these days, because these days you would simply create a video and you put it in some real time, Unreal or something like that engine, and it would be there, but back then nothing like this existed. So, and for Arabs, we were supposed to basically shoot some sort of like almost kind of like Red Alert trailer intros, so play like live action, like live actors, put into some CG environment. And because my girlfriend then was, she was working for Czech, I think she was working. I'm not sure whether she was. I think back then she was working for TV, Czech television, TV studio here in Brno, and she knew these actors around Brno theaters and stuff. So she gave me some contacts, and we even had some actors basically making some tests with them, and like. We didn't never made like up to the like really shooting with them, but we already had some like pre-dealed. I would say we made some deal with one guy who was supposed to play the leader of the Arab army, and or like the sheikh, and one girl, and she was supposed to be like this. Basically gun for hire hitman type of character, and she was supposed to be in charge of the mercenaries, basically, who were hired by the Arabs to go into the past. So these two characters we already had, and we also had some guy who would direct the shooting and everything, but then as the money ran out and basically everything was scrapped, we never went on with this.
Wow, yeah, there was
because the Arab mission would be really fun because there were a lot of stuff with this experimenting with the ape-mans, with them carrying the suicide basically bombers and the saber-tooth tiger taming and this stuff and mammoths.
Yes.
It would be fun. I remember that this girl was supposed to be, and we went even onto a location. There was an old factory, abandoned factory in our city, which is now already torn down. And this girl was supposed to have there some sort of bunker basically, and she was supposed to train there, and then got this message on some sort of smartphone. And being hired by this Arab prince and fly to some Arab country and negotiating with them and stuff it was interesting. Yeah.
I think there was an alien interface that was being made, but it was abandoned. Do you remember maybe this interface?
Yes, I think that it was making Jan Krátký. He makes some of this interface. Some I think make David Spáčil, but I don't know really who make the final version. I think that there was more versions of interface, and final is final.
There were also actually originally ideas or designs for the interface. Or not the interface like the game interface. The game interface was always supposed to be either Russian, American, or Arabian.
Yeah.
But the loading screen and the interface of the game for loading the game and everything was originally made as an alien interface.
Oh,
basically,
that's
it was supposed to be like control board of the Eon, make it look like this. But then the decision was made because actually you never see anything alien in the game. It would look weird why the main interface is alien, The first thing that you see alien is in the very last mission and it's only a small part somewhere down there. So then Honza Krátký made the design of the interface that's there in the release.
And another funny situation was with Honza Krátký, who you talked already with. When he started there, he was I think 19, and when I saw him first time, we were talking and he said one sentence which I remember, when I was young, I don't know, did something, and he was 19 at this time.
He was 18.
Those are alien buildings, but do you remember if you worked on them? How did you decide to design them, or were there any older versions?
Actually, honestly, I am not sure who, because I don't want to take credit, but I was the one who was building them. The ones that are in the very last mission on the bottom right corner.
Yeah.
The structure, the city sort of. That was my design. And the Eon, I think it was some community, or it was basically designed by the assignment that is supposed to be basically phone booth size teleport that fits only one character, one basically a human being. And one of the reasons, I don't know whether anybody told you, or at least what I remember, the reason why the Arabs finally destroyed the Eon was that they actually tried, together with these mercenaries and with the Arab leaders, with this sheikh who was in charge there, the sheikh insisted of having his own horse sent into the past.
Oh.
But because the Eon was too small and the horse wouldn't fit in, they tried, experimented with it, and they basically wanted to turn the field, which is inside of the Eon, outside. so that it would send into the past anything that's around the Eon.
Oh, okay.
And so with this, and when they managed to do it, but unfortunately they sent the Eon into the past.
Oh,
wow.
So suddenly they were without the Eon, so that's why the Arab mission basically, or the Arabs were the ones who stopped everything after this. Nobody was able to send anything into the past because they had no machine, you know. So that was the design, the idea behind this, from what I remember, you know. Basically the Russians, the Americans found it in the Siberia. How is it in the intro? They carried it to Russia, to America. Then the Russians, when they found out what's going on, they stole the Eon from Americans and used it for themselves. And then it was stolen by the Arabs and they sent it into the past. So nobody was then able to send anything into the past. But the thing is actually, and also I'm not sure whether it was put somewhere officially. But from what I remember when we were talking about it with Vladia, basically the designer, he said that the Eon is not actually a time machine. The Eon is actually like proper teleport, but the teleport was supposed to send, it was basically made for communicating or basically moving the aliens from our world into their home world. But because their home world is, I don't know how many thousands light years away, the traveling would take that amount of time, basically, using speed of light. So what the Eon does is not only move them in space, but also in time, so that they arrive into the same time as they left, basically.
Wow.
But then it got broken, and only the time part remained working, not the spatial part,
right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when people found it here in Siberia, it was already broken, and the effect of putting everything into the past was just side effect of this broken function. Because if it would be fully functional, it would send them somewhere into the space, into some alien home planet, together with making them move back in time, so that they arrive in the same time as they leave.
What would you say to people who criticize games which are about time traveling? Because, you know, many people say that time traveling makes it difficult to understand, whether it be a movie or a video game. But in OW it seems to have been doing fine. What would you say to those people who are a bit scared of time traveling, especially when it comes to trying the game? So.
I think I'd say to them that you're right to be scared. It's very easy to end up making a complete mess and confusion with any game or any storyline where you introduce time travel. If you're going to do it, you have to do it well, and you have to be very careful how you do it. You have to do it in a manner that's internally consistent to whatever dynamics and whatever lore, if you like, you've set up for your world. And this was very much the argument I tried to use with marketing with Original War, is that, you know, yes, it's about time travel, but this is a great story. It's been very carefully thought out, and it allows us to have these three different factions involved in these interesting ways, and it's entirely consistent. So anybody who chooses to delve into the story, it all makes wonderful sense, and is very rewarding for them to read it. And it makes for the good gameplay as well, so it's a win-win. So my answer is yes, you're right. It's time travel is it's too often used as a kind of a get out of jail free card in games and in films and stories. So if I was still producing now and somebody came with a time travel game, my first thought would be careful. You know, you've got to do it. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it really well. But if you've done it really well, that's cool.
From my point of view, it was really great time, and I am happy to be part of this, and I am really glad that there is still community which is around this game, and I wish them best.
In my past, I was thinking about some continuation of the project of Original War, so it's a pity it doesn't come on the realistic way. But I like to remember this, and it is great that you are trying to follow this original War and taking care about mods, multiplayer, and up-to-date version of playable games. So I'm excited with this.
It's a very, very long time from creating Original War, and many things happen in life. For me, it was my first working experience, and it was very interesting making games, and if I will have possibility make it again, it will be nice make something again.
Yeah, I hope, guys, you are okay. Not only you talking to you right now, but also anybody else who I remember and who remembers me. You know, with some guys from Altar we meet regularly, more or less, every year. Mm-hmm. But not all of them, of course, because now they are spread basically all over the world. Mm-hmm. One or at least one guy I know is in the New Zealand, for example, and others like Arnold, he's flying around all the time, and others are in Prague at least, or somewhere else also. Some are working for other companies, and I am doing fine, so I hope you are doing fine as well, and I wish you good luck and with everything that you are doing, and you guys with this community and making the additional stuff with the game. I really think that you are great, and I wish you luck as well.
I have got a great deal of respect for Altar. They did their utmost to produce great games, and they did them in what were very difficult circumstances. I would really enjoy the opportunity to meet Martin again and and have a beer and a chat. So unfortunately, I can't see that happening with me in Australia, but very, very few offerings have come close to this. I think it's an excellent game, and it shows now, with its following 20 years on, that just how good it was, and the quality of the coding as well was very high, because and that's why the modders and the community has been able to take it and run with it. So I think it's awesome. I hope they've gone on to make more and different and interesting games, and enjoyed the experience.
And I have one question. Do you know some of the Polish fans which tried to play Original War with us about 10 or 15 years ago? There was a very very funny way because I was trying to play with some of my co-workers from Altar with them, and we are losing all the way. We are not.
Yes, actually.
So I'm not sure about their opinions about this playing Original War. As now I'm pretty old and I'm afraid I'm not able to win in real-time strategy.
It was absolutely fantastic to have you here. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you too, and it's interesting that community about Original War is still living. I don't hope about that 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, something will be play this game.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so bye.
Yeah, thank
have
you.
Have a nice
again.
day.
Bye bye, and have a nice day too.
Yep. Bye bye. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye. Bye then.
Have a nice day.
And you. Bye.
Bye.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, and bye.
Yeah, thank you, and sorry for being a bit anxious. I'm a bit shy.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Do you want to help, Azzy?
Česky možná?
Česky, my jsme to měli nazvaný jako kolopás.
Kolopás? Myslíte takovou tu obranu proti tanku?
Ne, jako pásy, pásový kola, opásovaný kola.
Jo, takhle.
Jako má tank podobně.
A no, teď to říct anglicky.
No,
Just becoming popular, you know? So, sorry, that's my cat.
Mine are locked out of the office, they're far too invasive. So.
Yeah.